Have you ever had that gut-wrenching experience when someone humiliates you in front of others? You stand there, stunned, trying to find the right words, but nothing comes out. Maybe they laughed at you. Maybe they insulted you. Maybe they made you feel smaller than you've ever felt. The sting of public humiliation is sharp, and it cuts deep. But here's the cold, hard truth. They'll never tell you this. You don't need to clap back to earn respect. In fact, the most powerful response you can have is silence. Silence, not as defeat, but as a weapon, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. The kind that makes them regret ever messing with you in the first place. Imagine this. Instead of shouting back or throwing a quick retort, you rise above it all, quietly and powerfully. You let your actions speak louder than any words ever could. In this video, I'm about to share some brutally honest ways to reclaim your power after being humiliated. No fake positivity, no pretending everything's fine, just raw, unapologetic confidence. Because when someone tries to tear down your pride in public, your silent comeback, your growth, your inner strength, that's what will echo in their mind, much louder than any insult or joke. Let's dive in. And by the way, if you love thought-provoking insights on stoicism, self-improvement, and navigating life with wisdom, then you'll love my free newsletter. Every Sunday, I send powerful lessons, controversial truths, and practical strategies straight to your inbox. All for free. Want to join? Just sign up using the link below and start receiving value-packed content weekly. Also, if you're a brand looking to sponsor my content and connect with an engaged audience, feel free to reach out via my email. Let's create something impactful together. Let your results slap them in the face. Let me take you back to a moment I'll never forget. It wasn't some major event, but a small gathering. Nothing fancy. Just a few friends and acquaintances. I made a simple slip-up while talking. Something minor that could happen to anyone. But then, here he came. The type who's always loud. Always trying to be the center of attention. Sarcasm dripping from his every word. Ego floating above him like a balloon ready to pop. He took that small mistake of mine and twisted it into his golden moment. Mocking me in front of everyone. He laughed, loudly, almost like the joke was funnier than it really was. And of course, the others joined in, not because they found it funny, but because it's easier to laugh with the pack than to be the target of it. And there I was, not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I knew exactly what I was doing. I knew that if I clapped back, I'd only be feeding the drama. I would give him exactly what he wanted, my energy, my frustration, my reaction. So, I gave him nothing, no expression, no comeback, just a quiet nod, almost as if I was agreeing with the joke. But in my mind, I wasn't agreeing with him, I was agreeing with a promise. You get your moment now, I told myself, but I'll take your spotlight later. From that moment, I vanished. No more social media posts. No more group chats. I stopped wasting time trying to prove myself with words and started proving myself through action. I went silent. I woke up earlier. I hit the gym harder. I read more, pushed past procrastination, and cut out distractions. I stopped giving attention to the people who laughed at me. Instead, I began investing in myself. Because my pride depended on it. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about redemption. Every day, I grew, and every time I leveled up, I imagined their faces, seeing me succeed, thrive, and evolve. I pictured it like a movie scene. And I was the hero. 6 months later, everything had changed. I was sharper, fitter, more focused than ever before. Then, guess who slid into my DMs? The same guy who once tried to humiliate me. But this time, he wasn't laughing. He was asking for advice. How do you build a brand? How do you get disciplined? How did you move ahead so fast? And in that moment, it hit me. I had won, not because I replied, not because I helped, but because I didn't need to reply. But the story doesn't end here. Let me share with you what comes next, and you won't want to miss it. When you don't react, you're stronger than any words that can hurt you. As I shared earlier, my results were loud enough to speak for themselves. And here's the controversial truth. No one tells you that clapping back with insults is loud and short-lived. But clapping back with results? That's silent, powerful, and humiliating on a whole different level. When someone publicly disrespects you, what are they really after? Simple, they want attention. Don't give it to them. Give them results instead. Let them witness you growing into someone they can't reach, can't mock, and definitely can't compete with. Let your transformation speak so loudly that their jokes become ancient history. Let your discipline make their laziness look embarrassing. Let your consistency highlight their inconsistency. Let your silence become a mirror reflecting their insecurity. When you grow and they don't, your very existence becomes their reminder that they lost. So, don't seek revenge. Don't beg for respect. Don't defend your name with noise. Build yourself up so strongly that their insult becomes your origin story. And let your success slap them in the face without you ever lifting a finger. Second, publicly ignore them. There are few moves more powerful than pretending someone doesn't exist, especially when they're expecting you to give them attention. Let me be brutally honest. The people who humiliate you in public aren't just being rude. They're making a power play. They want a reaction. Anger, tears, embarrassment, because that reaction validates their ego. But here's where you flip the script. You don't react, you don't speak, you don't even look their way. You ignore them publicly, coldly, like they're nothing. Let me tell you a story. There was a guy the first used to hang out with, loud, smug, always trying to one-up people in front of others. One day, he called me out in front of everyone, making fun of something personal I had shared with him in confidence. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I just stared at him with a blank face. Didn't argue. Didn't defend myself. Didn't even blink. And from that day on, he was cut off from my life. No eye contact. No nods. No conversations. Just a cold void between us. Months passed. I worked on myself. I grew stronger, sharper, more focused. People began noticing the difference in me. I wasn't playing social games anymore. I had boundaries. Then, it happened. At a gathering, this same guy walked up to me in front of others and said, "Hey, bro, are we good now?" I looked at him, said nothing, and walked right past him. Not a glance, not a smirk, just silence. And in that moment, in front of everyone, he looked tiny. Because I did what he couldn't, I kept my power. Now, here's the truth. People often say, be the bigger person. But being the bigger person doesn't mean being available to those who disrespected you. It means knowing your worth and deciding who no longer gets access to your life. You don't have to forgive disrespect just because it's uncomfortable to ignore it. And no, you don't need to fake peace to look mature. Maturity isn't about politeness. Maturity is control. Control over your energy. Control over who you acknowledge. Control over who you allow into your space. Here's why publicly ignoring someone works. It starves their ego. They expected drama. You gave them nothing. It shocks the crowd. People expect noise. You gave them silence. And silence is powerful. It flips the power dynamic. They thought they embarrassed you. But now they're the ones standing alone, invisible to the person they tried to humiliate. The best part? You didn't have to shout. Mastering the power of silence and restraint. Building on what we discussed earlier, where your actions speak louder than words. Let's dive deeper into why silence can be one of the most powerful responses you can give when faced with disrespect. Remember, you don't always have to react. Sometimes, the most impactful thing you can do is nothing. You didn't have to insult. You didn't even have to explain. What you did instead was show the world that this person no longer matters to you. And trust me, nothing cuts deeper than that. Because at the end of the day, respect isn't earned by clapping back. It's earned by refusing to acknowledge people who don't deserve your time or attention. That's how kings move. That's how leaders operate. They don't engage in arguments. They don't beg for respect. They exclude. So when someone disrespects you in front of others and then later tries to act like nothing happened, don't meet them halfway. Don't fake a smile. Don't play nice. Simply ignore them. Let your silence speak louder than any comeback could. Let them stand in a room full of people and realize they've been outgrown. That they're no longer in your circle. That they've been demoted to the status of a stranger. And here's the beauty of it. Everyone watching? They'll respect you more, not because you said something clever or witty, but because you said nothing at all. Your silence is not weakness. It's strength. 3. Speak once, and never again. Now let's talk about the power of speaking just once. There's a saying, the more you explain, the more they doubt, so why waste your breath? Say it once, clearly, confidently, and then shut the door. Let them live in the echo of your words. Here's something most people won't admit. The moment you start over-explaining yourself to someone who has already disrespected you, you've already lost. Why? Because what they're really after isn't clarity, it's control. They want you to chase their approval, to feel desperate to be understood, to need their permission to defend your name. But when you speak just once, without anger, without desperation, and never again, that shakes the room. Let me share a story I'll never forget. Years ago, I worked with a guy who acted like he owned the place. Charming when he needed to be. Manipulative behind closed doors. One day, during a team meeting, he took a cheap shot at me. It was public, blatant, and designed to humiliate me in front of everyone. Everyone turned their gaze toward me, waiting for a reaction, but I didn't give him the satisfaction. I said one line, calm, cold, director, if you really believe that, then I've clearly overestimated your integrity. That was it. No raised voice, no emotion, just the truth. And then, I leaned back, folded my arms, and let the silence burn through the room. He chuckled nervously, tried to shift the blame, and even looked around for support. But the damage was already done. I never spoke on it again, never confronted him, never gave him any more energy. And guess what? That moment became the only thing people remembered. Not his insult, but my restraint. Here's why speaking once and never again is so powerful. 1. It makes your words unforgettable. People are used to noise, repetition, and pleading. When you speak only once, it hits harder. It becomes a statement, not a debate. 2. It shows unshakable confidence. When you don't feel the need to defend yourself multiple times, it sends a clear message to the world. You know who you are. You're not here to prove it. 3. It exposes the other person's insecurity. When you stop responding, they start unraveling. They dig their own grave trying to regain control. And you're already 10 steps ahead. Now, here's the controversial truth. You don't owe your truth to people who twisted it the first time. You don't owe them a clarification. You don't owe them your voice. You owe yourself peace. Let people talk. Let them misunderstand you. Let them make their assumptions. Because if they were truly worth your energy, they wouldn't have tried to embarrass you in the first place. Here's what you do. Speak once, not out of rage, but out of power. Be sharp. Be clear. But don't be petty. Then, leave them with nothing but your silence. Your silence is the most powerful response you could ever give. When you stop speaking, when you stop defending, they are left with nothing but the uncomfortable truth of their own actions, and that's something they can't escape. So the next time someone tries to disrespect you, remember this. You don't need to argue, to yell, to fight back. Let your silence become the loudest voice in the room. Let your actions speak for you. Because when you've mastered silence, no one can ever truly hurt you again. Use humor as a dagger. As we saw in the previous section, silence is a powerful weapon that helps you protect your peace and sends a clear message to those who disrespect you. However, in some situations, when you're publicly insulted, there's another powerful response you can use: humor as a sharp dagger. This is a strategy that many don't consider, but when applied correctly, it can completely change the course of the situation. When you're publicly humiliated or criticized in front of others, your first instinct might be to feel angry, upset, or even hurt. However, what they want is to see you react weakly. They want to see you get mad. They want you to justify yourself. They want to watch you crumble. But instead of doing that, there's one response that not only makes you stronger but also leaves others silent, even confused. Use humor. And not just any humor, a sharp, subtle joke that exposes, one that slips under the surface, dances around their ego, and strikes before they even realize they've been cut. Let me tell you a story that will help you understand how humor can completely reverse a situation. Imagine you're in a small meeting with around 10 people. One of them, the type who's overly confident, too comfortable being loud, decides to call me out in front of everyone. He says something like, "Honestly, I'm not sure you really understand what the client is asking for." That's not a question, that's a public slap. The room goes quiet, and all eyes turn to me. He wants everyone to laugh. He wants me to trip over myself. Now, younger me would have probably defended myself with a full explanation. But I paused, I took a breath, looked him right in the eyes, and with a smile, I said, "You're absolutely right. Let's slow down to your pace." The room went dead silent for a moment, and then awkward chuckles filled the air. But here's the best part. I didn't follow up. I didn't explain myself. I simply moved on with the meeting, as if I had just brushed off some lint from my shoulder. He didn't say another word, not because I yelled, not because I dominated, but because I made it clear, I'm not the one to mess with. So why does humor work better than rage when you've been disrespected? There are 3 main reasons. First, it confuses the enemy. When they try to provoke you, they know exactly how you'll react. They want anger. They want a fight. But when you smile and hit back with something sharp, witty, and subtle, they don't know what just happened. They have no clue what to do next. And that confusion takes away their power. Second, it turns the room in your favor. People admire confidence. They adore composure. But what they respect most is when you make disrespect look ridiculous. A well-timed joke can flip the social dynamic. People will side with you, silently, sometimes even loudly, but either way, the room belongs to you now. Third, it makes you memorable. Anger fades, rants are forgotten, but a savage one-liner that cuts deep lingers. People will repeat it, laugh about it, and deep down, even the person you joked about will replay it in their head for weeks. Here are a few lines you can keep in your back pocket for moments like these. 1. "Oh, so I have to keep up with your pace. Huh? I thought we were negotiating a project, not racing." 2. "Thanks for pointing that out, but I think we need to look at this from a different angle." 3. "I really appreciate you helping me realize that. Now let's slow down so we can all keep up." 4. "It's great to hear your thoughts. Now I'll make sure I don't get lost in this conversation." These kinds of lines not only make you stronger in the eyes of others but also show your confidence, composure, and ability to take control of the situation. As I mentioned earlier, humor is a fantastic tool to make disrespect look foolish and shift the power dynamic in your favor. Use your wit as your sharpest weapon, and let it do the work for you. Remember, when faced with disrespect, don't get pulled into their game. You don't need to react angrily, and you certainly don't need to explain yourself. Use humor, a sharp, memorable line, and you'll make those who disrespect you feel like the ones who have lost control. Let your intelligence be your strongest weapon. Cut off anyone who laughed with them. Now, remember how we talked about taking control of the situation with humor and turning the tables on those who try to humiliate you. That's just one piece of the puzzle. But there's something even more crucial: who you choose to keep in your circle. When someone humiliates you publicly, the first thing you do is look at them, the one who threw the insult, the one who tried to break you. But then there's the second group you should pay attention to, those who laughed, the ones who smirked, or even the ones who stayed silent, despite knowing you and understanding the situation. These are the people who chose comfort over character. And that betrayal cuts deeper than the insult itself. I'll be real with you for a second. Disrespect from an enemy is to be expected. That's what enemies do, right? They try to tear you down, to make you feel small. But betrayal from someone who calls you bro, sis, or friend, that's a different level. It hits harder because you didn't see it coming, and it shakes the foundation of your trust in them. Let me share a personal story to drive this home. Back in college, I had a friend who decided to crack a joke about my financial situation, loud enough for everyone to hear. It was classic him. He was the class clown, the one who always had a joke for everything. And, of course, the room burst into laughter. But here's the kicker. It wasn't his joke that burned me. It was the three people who sat beside me, my so-called friends, who laughed right along with him. The same people I'd shared meals with, studied for exams, and even defended when others spoke behind their backs. And on that day, I didn't say a word. I just took mental notes. That moment, though, it changed something inside me. From that day on, I was done with them. No more group chats, no more hanging out, no more pretending like everything was fine. I cut them off, clean and cold, and you know what? Not one of them ever came back to ask why. Deep down, they knew. They knew they laughed when they shouldn't have, and they knew they had chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. And that's the lesson. Silence is a choice. So is laughter. So is disloyalty. You don't just cut someone off because they insulted you. You cut them off because they showed you who they really are. And those who laughed with your enemy or stood silent while you were being disrespected, they need to be cut off too. Here's why. 1. They show you their true allegiance. People don't laugh at jokes that hurt someone they truly respect. If they laughed while you were being disrespected, it means they enjoyed it, even if they later try to downplay it by saying, "Oh, it was just a joke," or "I didn't mean it like that." Don't buy into those excuses. Laughter is agreement in disguise. When someone laughs at your expense, they're not just amused, they're showing they're on the wrong side. 2. Weak boundaries. If you keep them around, if you continue to interact with people who've betrayed your trust, it shows that you don't have strong boundaries. When you let it slide, they'll think it's okay to do it again. They'll cross your lines again, and you'll continue to let it happen, and that only makes you look weak. You gain no respect by keeping people who have betrayed your dignity in your life. Boundaries aren't just about keeping toxic people away. They're also about teaching others how to treat you. 3. Your presence is valuable. You have to remind yourself, your presence is valuable. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not worthy of respect. And certainly don't let people who disrespect you stay in your life. You are not here to be a punching bag for people who can't see your worth. Cutting off those who laughed at your humiliation is not just about removing toxicity from your life. It's about protecting your peace, your self-respect, and your dignity. So, next time someone humiliates you, don't just focus on the one who insulted you. Pay attention to the ones who laughed, stayed silent, or chose not to stand up for you. Cut them off, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Let them deal with the consequences of their choices. Trust me, when you do this, you'll never have to explain why. They'll know, and you'll feel empowered, knowing you've drawn a clear line in the sand. Continuing from where we left off about cutting off those who don't deserve to stay in your life. When you realize that some people in your life don't deserve to be there, what you need to do is act decisively. Respect is not something you ask for, it's something you have to prove through your actions. You are not desperate. You don't need anyone's sympathy or approval. And if someone can't stand by you when times are tough, then they don't have the right to stand by you when you rise. Don't let their silence or indifference make you doubt yourself. This is the time to really see things clearly. If you don't cut off these toxic relationships, you will start to lose your own power. Those people will keep joking about you, talking behind your back, and using you to feel better about themselves. And worse, you may even start believing you deserve it. This might sound controversial, but let me make it clear. If you tolerate betrayal, don't be surprised when they bite. You don't need a big confrontation. You don't need closure. You just need to stop responding. Stop inviting them. Stop trusting them. That's it. And here's something no one dares to say. Most people are watching how you react when you're humiliated. They take notes. If they see you forgive the wrong people too quickly, they'll think of you as someone who can be walked over. But if they see you cutting people off, moving on smarter without bitterness, you become a threat, someone with standards, someone who demands respect, not just in words but in actions. So next time someone disrespects you in public, look around, see who laughed, who smirked, and who stayed silent when they could have spoken up. Those people are not your friends. They're just waiting for their turn to laugh at your expense again. When respect is lost, distance is the only cure. Cut them off quietly, permanently, no warnings, no announcements, and watch how your life becomes lighter and your circle becomes stronger. Now, let's talk about how to make them regret ever picking on you. Listen to me. When someone humiliates you, they're not just trying to be funny. They're testing you. They're gambling on the idea that you won't fight back, that you'll stay silent, that you'll let it slide. But that's exactly when you need to flip the narrative. You don't react with emotions. You respond with evolution. You want to make them regret ever thinking you were the soft one. But you do it strategically. Not with screams, not with revenge, but with transformation. Let me tell you a true story. Back in my first job, I had a manager who humiliated me in front of the entire team. He laughed at my ideas, interrupted me mid-sentence. At one point, he literally said, "Let's leave the real decisions to people who actually know what they're doing." Everyone laughed. I didn't. I felt like my chest was on fire. But I didn't flinch. I said nothing. But I promised myself this. You'll eat those words. And I won't even have to say a word when it happens. So, what did I do? I went silent, but not submissively. I stopped trying to impress them. Instead, I focused. I learned like a madman. I took on the worst clients, the least desirable projects. I stayed late, but not for them, for me. And 3 months later, I closed a deal that literally saved the company's quarter. Guess who had to stand in front of everyone and give me credit? Yeah, him. He didn't look me in the eye once because deep down, he knew. He gave the mic to the wrong person that day. So how do you make them regret ever picking on you? Simple. 1. Become the person they said you'd never be. The fastest way to silence a critic is to embody everything they said you couldn't. They called you dumb? Outlearn them. They mocked your ideas? Outbuild them. Becoming the person they never saw coming. They laughed at your dreams. Let them. Use their mockery as fuel, not as a wound that festers. The truth is, you don't need to explain your comeback to anyone. You don't need to announce your every move. What you need is to build in silence. Create something so undeniable that, when the time comes, your success will speak for itself. Your silence will be your strongest weapon. As you move quietly and show results, the very people who once underestimated you will be left in the dust. By the time they realize you've leveled up, it'll be far too late for them to undo the damage they've caused. Let them regret what they did, without you ever saying a word. And here's something they won't expect. Don't block them. Don't erase them from your life completely. Let them watch. There's no better revenge than showing them your success. The best revenge isn't served in confrontation, it's served on a glowing screen, where they see your victories unfold. Let them scroll through your progress. Let them hear your name spoken with respect. even admiration. Let your success become their personal punishment. Now, let's be a little controversial for a moment. You've heard it. Forgive and forget. People tell you that you should forgive. But here's the thing. You don't have to forget. Why? Because pain has a memory. And when used correctly, that memory can drive you, fuel your growth, and push you forward. It doesn't become trauma. It becomes motivation. They picked on you when you were weak. Now, let them see you at your most powerful. And no, you don't need to humiliate them in return. You don't need a confrontation. Not even an angry word. The best regret they'll feel is seeing you rise. Become everything they tried to suppress. And do it quietly, with grace. Here's the cold truth. Nobody regrets picking on the person who stays silent and disappears. But they regret underestimating the one who rises, walks back into the room unrecognizable, and commands attention without even trying. That's the version of you they won't see coming. And when they do, it'll be too late. Now, let's talk about standing your ground, standing on your standards. Here's what you need to understand. When someone publicly humiliates you, they're testing your self-worth. They want to see how much disrespect you'll tolerate before you act. And how you respond says everything. Not just to them, but to everyone watching. This is when your standards come into play. I'm not talking about the standards you talk about. I'm talking about the ones you enforce. The invisible lines that say, this is what I accept, and this is what I don't. If someone crosses those lines, they're out. No explanations necessary. Let me share a personal story. I once had a friend who loved to make jokes that were really just insults dressed up with a smile. He'd mock my appearance, my family, even my relationships, and always, after the remark, he'd say, "Relax, I'm just kidding." One day, in front of a group, he made a comment about something personal, a secret I had shared with him. People laughed. I didn't. I looked at him calmly and said, "Rai, that's the last time you'll ever speak to me like that." He laughed, thinking I was bluffing. But I wasn't. I didn't shout. I didn't explain. I simply cut the cord. No texts, no calls, no interactions. Done. And what happened? Within weeks, the people who had laughed with him started drifting my way. Why? Because when you have standards, you become magnetic. Not because everyone likes you, but because they respect you. Let's break it down. First, standards are not rules. They're boundaries with consequences. Anyone can say they have boundaries. But if there's no consequence, it's just a suggestion. If you let someone cross your line once and do nothing about it, they'll cross it again, this time, with confidence. Your standards should be like concrete. Step out of line, and you hit a wall. No warning, no softness, just reality. Second, people will test you. Some people will mock you, tease you, or disrespect you on purpose just to see if you're all talk. They'll push, they'll provoke, and they'll try to break you. But the truth is, those who test you the most are the ones who need to see the strength of your boundaries the clearest. You can't afford to give in, to let them push you back into silence or submission. Stand tall, stand firm, and watch how everything around you starts to change. Continuing from what we discussed about standing firm on your standards and personal boundaries. Now let's see what really happens when you stop backing down. If you fold, you're basically teaching them a lesson, that you're not serious about yourself. But on the other hand, when you stand firm, you earn one of two things, either respect or distance from them, and both are wins. You might lose some people, but in return, you gain inner power. Honestly, enforcing your standards isn't always comfortable for others. Some will leave. Let them go. Because when you raise your standards, those who can't keep up will naturally fall away. They'll call you arrogant. They'll say, "You've changed." And you know what? Yes, you have changed. Growth often looks like arrogance to those who remain stuck in place. Here's the controversial part. Most people don't really have standards. They just want to be liked. They let people mock them, look down on them, walk all over them, and they smile through it all just to avoid conflict. But that's not humility. That's self-abandonment. When you truly stand up for your standards, the way people treat you changes. Not because you demand respect, but because you command it through how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you respond. Here's how to do it practically. When someone disrespects you once, you address it once. If they do it again, you walk away. No arguing, no drama, just distance. And most importantly, never lower your standards just to keep someone who makes you feel small. Standards are how you teach the world to treat you. If someone humiliates you and you let it slide, you've taught them they can do it again. But if you draw a clear line and stick to it, you build a boundary even they can't ignore. That's how you earn respect, not by shouting or snapping back, but by standing tall on unshakable principles. Even when the whole room laughs at you, they thought it was a joke, until you became the lesson. The truth is, you don't gain respect by reacting impulsively when humiliated. You gain respect by transforming when they least expect it. Let them laugh, let them mock, let them write punchlines behind your back. But while they remain stuck repeating the same shallow cycle, you silently evolve. You rise with purpose. And by the time they realize what you've become, you'll be untouchable. Not because you're louder, but because you're unshakable. The world is full of people who test your boundaries just to see if you love yourself enough to defend them. So show them you don't need to argue to prove your worth. Show them your light doesn't dim just because someone tries to shade it. Show them you can turn disrespect into domination. Because here's what they'll never tell you. The strongest revenge is becoming someone they have to respect. Even if they don't like you. Even if they never say it out loud. So next time someone tries to humiliate you, smile, say nothing, and get to work. You don't need applause. You need silence, and a storm building behind it. And when you finally speak again, it won't be words, it will be results.